Perfect. Well, if you're a member of Dub Nation, you probably woke up this morning with the sting still burning within your loins. It's just hurting. It literally burns. Is that just a Freudian slip there? Anyways, Dave, I needed someone. I needed someone to come on this show today because I'm still pissed. I'm still annoyed. Who can give the greatest takes on the planet, whose opinions we actually value on this in this green earth. Damon Bruce, host of the Damon Bruce Show, or is it Damon Bruce Plus? We'll figure that out next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can follow Damon Bruce. His show's about to hit 10,000 subscribers in what, like 3 months? Whatever it is.
Not 3, but it's like 7-8 months. It's I wanted to get there by Thanksgiving. If we get there the week after Thanksgiving, I'll still feel like I pretty much hit the goal. Thank you, Cyrus. Thanks for bringing me on. Let's talk about your spicy loins.
well, first of all, let's let people know real fast. You can follow Damon Bruce on Twitter at Damon Bruce. Super easy, just your name. And then you could subscribe to the Damon Bruce Show. But what are we calling this thing officially?
Well, it's Damon Bruce Plus, but Plus doesn't rhyme with Bruce the way that Plus does. So Damon Bruce Plus is what the people call it. And for whatever reason, it works. It's stupid. It fits. So here we are. Please subscribe to Damon Bruce Plus on YouTube. I'd sure appreciate it.
There you go. So first off, we still have no news regarding Gary Payton II. He was scheduled to get an MRI on that calf today. That is incredibly concerning. I think more so than Chris Paul's injury, because with Chris Paul, it's par for course. He does this every year. You know, the report for Chris Paul is soreness. We don't know what's going on with Gary Payton II. But Damon, the Warriors are 8-10, man, and it's not looking pretty. I guess the bright side is these are close losses, so they're not waving the white flag. We're not experiencing massive losing streaks like they're experiencing in places like Detroit. But nonetheless, the expectation here is championships and success. And it's not going so well so far. What is your immediate reaction to the game last night and just your overall reaction to the Warriors so far, 18 games in?
Last night was about as bad of a regular season loss I can remember Steve Kerr and the Warriors dialing up. They blew a 24-point lead. Steve Kerr made a terrible challenge, which left him without a timeout when he needed to advance the ball down the court with a timeout. And beyond that, Cyrus, I mean, Draymond Green is as emotional as my 4-year-old. And it's no longer helping the team. Like, Draymond is not getting the tech that lights the fire under his own team as much as he gets the tech that lights the fire under the opponent. He is easily rattled, and you can't be a leader if you're easily rattled. I could get Draymond Green thrown out of any game that I were either playing or coaching against him by the end of the first quarter. It would be easy. It'd be the easiest part of my game plan. Yeah. Let's light this guy's fuse and watch him combust internally. You know, I mean, he just, for a 33-year-old, 12-year NFL or NBA vet who's got rings, he's a freaking child. I mean, and he is now in the center of losing more than he's in the center of winning. We are 18 games into a 4-year extension. He's been suspended for 5 of them. He's missed a few of them with injury. And where does this end? Because it apparently he can't reel it in himself, and there's no amount of Steve Kerr talking to him, or Bob Myers, or now Mike Dunleavy, or Steph Curry, or anyone talking to him. You know, Jordan Poole and the punch might have been at the launching pad of Draymond losing his leadership voice, but Draymond has done more to disqualify himself as a leader of this basketball team than anyone I can think of.
Yeah.
And here's the deal, Draymond. The league hates you. Every opponent hates you. Every single official in this league hates you. pretty sure the commissioner doesn't like you. I'm very sure that your coach is getting sick of you. And it's about time to where other Golden State Warriors start putting Draymond in check. And whether or not Steph Curry's got that card up his sleeve, he better find it. He better find it, because Draymond obviously won't listen to anyone. And if he won't listen to Steph Curry, well, then there's no real reason to keep him around anymore. And that's a tough thing to say on the first year of a 4-year extension for a guy with diminishing returns. I really wonder if a combination of Jonathan Kuminga, Trace Jackson Davis, and Moses Moody couldn't improve upon what you get from Draymond Green and what you might be leaving defensively on the table with those changes. You more than make up for with offense. And Draymond needs to be a value add, not a value subtract. And he is subtracting more value from the Warriors, Cyrus, than he's adding.
Oh my God, this whole thing is depressing right now. Before we resume with the Warriors talk, real fast, your opinion. Does it bother you at all? Is it weird to you that the NBA has this very clear bias? Like that technical on Draymond last night was absurd, in my humble opinion. It was clearly a Draymond technical. It was not just a technical because he crossed some sort of boundary in terms of the rules. All he did was just literally mimic a carrying call, and he got a technical for that. Like, is that an issue? Like, right, does it matter that no one's talking about the fact that there's this blatant bias? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So the reason why there's a bias is because he's earned it. I mean, you can't conduct yourself as a flaming asshole for 12 years and then expect to be given the benefit of the doubt in any moment.
Right.
Draymond has, that tech was not done in the carrying motion. That tech was the 4 minutes of gum flapping, not stopping, being able to stop talking to an official when everyone is just saying, walk away, walk away, walk away. The guy can't walk away. And even as he is walking away, he's leaning over his shoulder and shouting back. I mean, you cannot be an adult and only be governed by emotions. You can't.
That's very fair, man.
And I'm going to tell you right now that this league is full of savage, badass competitors who want it just as much as Draymond does. And nobody goes about acting like that.
Yeah.
Nobody. He really thinks that he is in a class all by himself. And he is out there to be, if I can quote Dave Chappelle, a habitual line stepper every single game. This was the first game back from a 5-game suspension, and you can't keep it together for 4 quarters in your first game back from a 5-game suspension. You selfish SOB. I mean, look. Draymond can do whatever the hell he wants to do as long as he's helping this team win. The minute he is not helping this team win, then we got problems. Yeah. And Steve Kerr has a dog that he's never been able to put on a chain, and I don't think he's going to be able to do it now. And what do you do? I'll tell you what I think should be seriously considered here, Cyrus. There's only one saving grace to this Warriors season so far. Steph is still, there's 2. Steph is balling. He is at his ripe old age. He is basically getting you 30 a night on, 50, 40, 90 splits. The guy is incredible.
Agreed.
But beating the Warriors is as easy as just getting the ball out of Steph Curry's hand. That's it. Double him at half court, trap him everywhere else, and let the rest of these guys screw up the night. And that is happening far too often. And what I don't like is Steve Kerr, just the night before Thanksgiving, Cyrus, had that, my bench got us back into this game, so even though it's a 3-point game and I got the greatest 3-point shooter of all time, I'm not going to put him back in the game. I'm going to ride with Corey frickin' Joseph. And that's how we're going to maybe stun the Phoenix Suns the night before Thanksgiving. Then you got Moses Moody, who is your only fourth quarter offense. He's perfect from the floor. He is playing his nuts off, and he gets pulled out of the game. That just does not make sense. It doesn't. And Steve Kerr playing Corey Joseph over Brandon Pajemski, it just does not make sense.
And just to add to that, he has this weird obsession with point guards. Like, I feel like Steve Kerr is going to lose his mind if there isn't at least one traditional point guard on the court, even though teams like the Suns don't feel that same urgency. Your team, is your team the Bulls? Is that safe to say? You grew up with the Bulls, right? Or is it the Pacers?
Rooting for the Bulls. Now I'm just, I pretend I'm a journalist, so I'm not rooting for any. But that's not true. Of all the Bay Area teams, the one that I root for the most is the Warriors. Sexy basketball and the dynastic run was one of the greatest rides any team will ever take me on in my career. And I love hoops. I'm a hoops junkie, being an Indiana boy. So, I love basketball, and I really like the Warriors, and Steph Curry is the best show on television. And now they've added one of my favorite ancillary characters in Trace Jackson Davis, who, by the way, needs to play. I mean, come on. I don't get it. I don't.
By the way, and Trace Jackson Davis has been on your show. I want to promote that real fast. Did he come on the second time? You said he was going to come back for an encore. Has that happened yet?
We're going to do something hopefully again soon. We couldn't connect right before the last road trip because instead of being on that road trip, he was sent to Santa Cruz and whatever. So anyway.
Yeah, I hear you. And again, I'm with you in that frustration. The minute distribution is wild to me. We'll talk about that and so much more after we give some love to one of our sponsors today, which is eBay Motors. You live in the city, Damon. Do you even have a car? Are you a carless individual?
No, we got Kia Life tattooed right across. We're Kia Mob.
Well, I bring that up because, eBay Motors is awesome in the sense that, they provide parts for your vehicle at the cheapest prices out there. But we also have this campaign right now with them where our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd. He has the most popular program on the Locked On Podcast Network to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long, whether you're prepping for a daily fantasy or scouting the waiver wire. Each week, we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster in the same way that eBay Motors guarantees the fits are guaranteed for your car. So, Damon, I'm going to list 5 players to you. Each week, Josh Lloyd, our fantasy expert, will give us a list of 5 players. You tell me which one you want to focus on that you think might provide enthusiasm for the fantasy players out there. His 5 picks this week are Jaden Ivey, Al Horford, Gordon Hayward, Sadiq Bey, and Scoot Henderson. Who do you feel like focusing on for this week so I can read his analysis?
None. Sorry.
I'll go with Sadiq Bey because for a brief moment
he was a Warrior just for a moment there, right?
For a moment, exactly. So I'll roll with him. And Bey, according to Josh Lloyd, has elevated to the starting lineup with Jalen Johnson out and should be able to be serviceable for fantasy teams. Yeah, I wish he was serviceable for the Golden State Warriors. They could have used his size. And Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With over 120 with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, your Kia included, Damon, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And subscribe to Damon Bruce Plus on YouTube. He's almost at 10,000. In fact, probably by the time you're watching this show, you will have crossed the 10,000 mark. We're live right now. You can follow Damon Bruce on Twitter at Damon Bruce. You can follow me on Threads. I wish I saw you more there. It's a fun scene. At Dog Wild. That's my handle. Look, I saw a comment.
Real quick. I said the Warriors got 2 things going for him. Yeah. Curry, obviously. The second thing is Cyrus, it's not even December yet. Like, there's still a lot of basketball to be
That's
played.
true.
And slow starts and bad starts happen. But there are just some concerning signs on this team. And it feels like Kerr is now leaning into his veterans in a way that's hurting the team more than it's helping the team. And it's a little bit of a head scratcher. It's kind of like what we saw him do in the games that America just came back without a medal in. Just his rotations, I don't get. I don't understand what you're looking at. And that's like this big, broad discussion. And then just in the terms of last night, Moses Moody is the only guy who's doing it in the fourth quarter. Why is he not finishing that fourth quarter? Is it to let Draymond down lightly? Is it to let Clay down lightly? Is it to let Andrew Wiggins down lightly? Steve Kerr needs to have just one guy that he's working with. It's Steph Curry. Get Steph Curry the best situation you can. And whose ever feelings have to be hurt on the way to the best situation, I don't care.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, man. And I brought up, before we went to the eBay read, I was bringing up the Chicago Bulls mostly because you grew up watching that dynasty, and they never relied on traditional point guards. I bring this up a lot. Like the second half of that dynasty, Ron Harper was the point guard, and it's weird to me. Steve Kerr was part of that team. He realized that Phil Jackson's triangle, which the split action motion offense that Steve Kerr runs is based off of, you don't need this ball handling type player to succeed. All you need is ball movement, you need player movement, and you need the 5 best players on the court. And I feel like Steve Kerr is oftentimes putting his personal loyalty to these veterans above who the best 5 are on his team. And he also, going back to the Corey Joseph thing, he, for some reason, and this happened last year with Ty Jerome, that drove me crazy. Corey Joseph doesn't drive me crazy at that level, but he seems to need this point guard out there when I don't see that need. Like, do you agree with me, or do you I know you just complained about Corey Joseph, but do you feel like the team has to have a point guard at all times, or is it okay if every once in a while Moses Moody brings the ball up, Draymond brings the ball up? Stephen Curry is a point guard. He's fine. He doesn't need his second point guard out there. What are your thoughts on that part of the offense?
Paul on this team. I mean, obviously he wasn't available last night, but Podziemski is another guy who I think can handle the ball a little bit.
I'm with you on that.
Right now, Trace Jackson Davis can bring the ball up the court.
Yes, agreed. He's actually a good ball handler.
He could. Agreed. So, the star of the show has always been ball movement and player movement. I used to joke around with Steve. I was like, you and Bob Knight have more in common than you'd ever want to admit, because you're both running motion offenses essentially. And Steve would push back on that. But it's a motion offense. And, getting to a space, vacating the space, constantly moving, never staying put, presenting yourself for the ball handler to be a passing option. That's where this team has always found success. So, I do think untraditional. And look, Corey Joseph, I don't mean to rip the guy. And he didn't even have a bad game last night. But Brandon, I am more interested in seeing what Brandon Podziemski might do based on not my assumptions or hope, but what I've actually seen. I mean, I'm looking at a guy who needs more, not less minutes. Moses Moody, more, not less minutes. Jonathan Kuminga, more, not less minutes. And God bless all the memories that Klay Thompson has given us. And whatever Wiggins does. Those guys are not doing what they're supposed to do. And when you got options and you refuse to go to the options, it gets frustrating. And it gets hard to explain, and it's getting harder and harder for Steve to defend. You can only say, I trust my veterans so many times. Then when you got a losing record, maybe it's time to trust something else.
I absolutely agree with you. The national media is starting to really pile on in terms of the existential crisis that the Warriors are dealing with. When we come back in just a moment, I'm going to ask you, Damon, or I already am asking, but we're going to get your answer. When is the panic button going to be pressed here? Like the metaphorical panic button. Like, in other words, at some point, do the Warriors make a trade? At some point, do you bench Clay? These are big questions that if this continues going the way it's going, are going to have to be addressed. And I'd love to get your feedback to that. Got to give some love first to FanDuel. And there we can talk about a 49ers team that you're covering on your show as well, besides the NBA. And look, as the weather gets colder, it's getting cold right now. The NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. And right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet, meaning you pick a heavy favorite. The spread doesn't matter. Bet $5 on the money line. Whoever's playing the Panthers, bet on them, and you get $150 in bonus bets. That's like cash. It's the same thing. Damon, it's crazy to me that the Niners are favored by 2.5, 3 points, whatever it is. It keeps fluctuating. What's your take on this, man? What's going to happen Sunday?
Isn't that nuts? I mean,
yes.
So if I'm if I'm playing the game, I'm taking the 10-1 team at home getting points. I also think the Niners can win this game. I think that they can cover that too, but they have to go and do it before I assume it's going to happen. Like, this is one of those, you want to be the man, you got to beat the man. And whether any Niner fan wants to admit it or not, right now the Eagles are 10-1. They're the man in the NFC.
Yep.
How about this? Here's what I really believe. No matter who wins this game, I do believe that the NFC's Super Bowl representative will be on the field on Sunday in Philadelphia. It's going to be one of these two teams. I don't trust the Cowboys. I don't trust the Lions. And after that, there's nothing really even to talk about. So I think it's going to be, I hope it's a fantastic game.
Same. I guess that's, and I hope 49ers win because I'm emotionally invested in that team almost as much as the Warriors. But look, and right now there's no better time to get in on the action with FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com. You could bet on a million different spreads, props, you name it, with this Niners game. It's coming up. And the best part about gambling, Damon, as I'm sure you know, if the game is boring, let's say it's not Niners Eagles, let's say it's like Chargers Bears, for example. No offense to your Bears. Like, that's where gambling comes into play. It makes things interesting. It makes things interesting. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, one final segment with the host of Damon Bruce Plus. Subscribe to him on YouTube. Again, it's Damon Bruce Plus. He's almost at 10,000 subscribers. You can follow him on Twitter at Damon Bruce. Damon, here's a trade. The only trade I could think of that would make sense for the Warriors and that I think could turn this ship around and salvage the season. I don't know who the outgoing players are yet. That could be another discussion. But the Raptors, to me, are the target. Like, if the Warriors are going to make a move, the Raptors, I think, are the team that they'd have to make a deal with, because the Raptors aren't going anywhere. They got some players on expirings, even though Masai is really frugal, very shrewd when it comes to his decision making. You might be able to get one or two players of value from that team. I'm looking more specifically at Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby. I wouldn't mind him if you have to get rid of Kuminga. Just because they're very similar players, at least where Kuminga is in his career right now. So those are the two players. And I wouldn't mind. I don't think Klay's going to get shipped. I don't think the Warriors have the guts to do that. I think if you make a trade, it's going to be more likely Chris Paul's expiring. You're going to have to throw in probably Kuminga. You're going to have to throw in a first-round pick or two. Is there anything out there you see? Do you like that hypothetical trade that I proposed? Is there anyone else out there you're looking at?
Well, OG Anunoby went to IU, so you're going to have two Hoosiers on the team. I mean, I'll wear candy stripes to the damn game.
All right.
Look, I'll look at it from the other side, because who the trading partner is, we don't know yet. We haven't gone deep enough into this season. But if I am Mike Dunleavy and I'm looking at this roster, it's anybody but Steph. Yep. That is available. Anybody but Steph Curry is an option to be explored. And that's just the way it is. And, there is, I love the loyalty that this team has had to its core players. But at some point, that loyalty can turn into your own self-destruction. It's the old Bill Walsh. It's better to say goodbye a year too early than a year too late. And that might already be the case with Klay. I mean, I'm going to tell you, I love Klay. Ripping Klay Thompson is like ripping Santa Claus. It's really hard to do. I love Santa Claus. He's at the center of an awful lot of really good memories, and so is Klay Thompson. Klay eats for free forever in this town.
Forever. He's going to have a statue built someday. You're absolutely right.
But I would like to see Moses Moody at the 2.
And this is where you can kind of start seeing why Bob Myers was like, this is a good time for me to say peace, right? I mean, this is very difficult decisions coming up here for the Golden State Warriors. Last night's game, they did play an awesome first half. They led by 24 in the second quarter. They went into the half leading by 17. Should have been more, but that sloppy play led to the 17-point lead instead of 19 or 21. But the point is, there was a blueprint there, and the Warriors are showing signs in these games. They're just not putting it together for 4 quarters. In my humble opinion, it's Steve Kerr needs to get out of his own way. What I mean by that is, like, for example, in the first half of last night's game, Kuminga played a lot. He played 7 minutes and change. And even though the numbers don't support it, he was a +4 for this game. He plays defense, which a lot of Warriors players are not doing. The Chris Paul, granted, got injured. Gary Payton II, granted, got injured. But you mentioned Moses Moody. That was the clear-cut error in Steve Kerr's rotations last night. My point is, like, the Warriors are showing glimpses here and there. Is there still hope for this team in its current incarnation? Can Steve Kerr, by making tweaks to his own philosophy and maybe having a sit down with his assistant, Kenny Atkinson, who has done a horrible job, in my opinion, as the number 2 guy handling the defense? Since he's taken over, that defense has not been good. Is it time for moves? Is the Warriors roster salvageable? What are your thoughts there?
I think we're approaching something else time. Oh, I really do. And maybe, like you said, it's just the way Steve Kerr. Look, to rip Steve Kerr is to not appreciate what he's done and provided. But to just sit there and say everything is great is to ignore what's going on. And I think that Steve has designs on the way a game should play out, but then he needs to actually coach the game that he's in. And sometimes your plans and the game that you're in don't align. And so you better play the game you're in. Moses Moody hasn't missed a shot in the fourth quarter and is the only one making buckets. So we're going to roll with Moses Moody. And why is it that an entire JV unit can be entrusted in a game in Phoenix, but just Moses Moody remaining with the starters? And here's the deal. If it's about not embarrassing Klay or Andrew Wiggins, get Looney off the court and have Draymond play the 5, small ball. I mean, why isn't that available in that moment where you got to keep a hot hand on the court? So I just think Steve has got a lot of noble ways of going about keeping a team that is maybe a little bit more fragile than we've ever known or assumed together. Like, Draymond's always been a pain in the ass. Jordan Poole, clearly. What I don't understand is why this team reverts to a Jordan Poole is still here level of turnovers.
I don't know. I don't know either, man.
What I don't understand is how so many, how can such a veteran-laden team look like a bunch of rookies far too often?
Yeah, a lot.
Just far too often. The kind of mistakes that would get Trace Jackson Davis or Brandon Pajemski yanked and sat aren't enough to get Wiggins, Klay, others, Draymond yanked and sat. And the whole, benching, the benching of Klay Thompson. This is not like a starting pitcher coming out of the game and he can't go back into it. And what I also don't understand is how come Draymond could come off the bench, Curry could come off a bench, Wiggins could come off the bench, but Klay Thompson is just can't do it. I don't get it. I don't get it.
100% with you. That is weird. Yeah, why is exactly because Steve Kerr will scoff at the idea. If you've interviewed him countless times, and he will not touch that. And it's because Klay Thompson is so sensitive to the subject. You saw his. What was your reaction to how he reacted to Tim Kawakami in that press conference? What were you thinking when you saw him kind of melt down like that?
I'm looking at a guy who is not himself.
Yeah.
I mean, Klay, the minute somebody is getting to Klay, that's Klay admitting I'm not myself right now. And I don't know if it's the pressure of the season, his performance, his numbers, the contract. I don't know what it is, but Klay is just not who he used to be, and it's being reflected on the court. So again, I really don't care who gets yelled at in a press conference. What do you do on the court? That's all I care about. I don't care. I don't care about next questioning Tim Kawakami. What I care about is good shot selection and knocking down open threes. And if Clay isn't doing either, what are we doing?
Wholeheartedly with you.
What are we doing? Because Clay's a jump shooter, and if jump shots aren't falling, and this is the problem that the Warriors are in. The Warriors have the burden of, you guys better be shooting like 62% every single night, or you might lose tonight. Like, that's a lot to do. That's a lot. You guys got to burn it down from the 3-point line to be in games every night, not some of the nights, every night. And that's just, it's a tough ask. It's a tough ask if you're not going to go out there and play stick your chin out defense each and every possession, which they don't do. Look, it's December. There's still a lot of basketball coming. True. You can even make the argument that the real stuff doesn't even begin until around Christmas. But the Warriors need to do a serious about-face look in the mirror. And if they don't have the answers being reflected in that mirror, it's time to change some of the faces in the mirror.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And Tim Ford, I just have to address this real fast. I'm not falling for the OG Anunoby hype. I wouldn't mind him on the Warriors. I bring him up because chances are, if you're going to make a serious trade, Pascal Siakam is a player I really want from the Raptors. But if you're going to give up a Kuminga in a deal like that, which you're probably going to have to do, why not get something back forward to replace Kuminga in OG Anunoby? That's the only reason why I bring him up, and I just wanted to address that in the chat. Damon, my firm belief, we're wrapping things up here. We got about 2 minutes. Is that the only salvation is for Steve Kerr to really look in a mirror. I mentioned that before, and have some self-reflection and look at these rotations. I for some reason, I feel like he overcomplicates this concept that is not that difficult, which is playing the best players on your team. And one example, look, I love Brandon Podziemski. Steve Kerr said, what was it, like a week ago? He's now a part of this rotation. And then we didn't see him at all last night. Well, something even more kooky than that. Brandon Podziemski, who I love, we both love this player and would love to see him. I would rather see him play over Corey Joseph. He's averaging more minutes than Moses Moody. Like, that is weird too. Like there's something amiss here with these minutes. And I just don't understand why he's making something that is not that complicated. Your final thoughts as we wrap it up, sir.
I just, you talk about looking in the mirror. I would say, look on the court, play the game that you're in. Not the plan that you had coming into it, but the game that's actually unfolding in front of you. And before you just discount what young players could do for you, put them in a game and find out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you want a short leash, Trace and Podziemski? Fine. Okay. But let them in the game. See what you can get. Let's see what 8 minutes looks like. And you know what? If those 8 minutes go well, maybe we go to 12. And if the 12 minutes go well, maybe we go to 16. Like it's kind of like right there. And that's, I think, where the frustration is for you, for me, for so many fans who are watching. It looks like there are levers to pull that Steve refuses to pull. And it's time to maybe pull a few levers, since this machine isn't operating quite like it used to. Cyrus, absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
It's always great to see you. And if we don't do this again before the holidays come and go, the very happy holidays to you, my friend, to all of your viewers. Go ahead and subscribe to Damon Bruce Plus. Check out the podcast. Like Draymond said, you're going to need this podcast. Get the podcast. And I thank you so much for having me on, brother. You're fantastic at what you do. Right, continued success with Locked On Everything.
Right back at you, man. And again, you're almost at 10,000 subscribers. We haven't heard from Damon you brought up Draymond Green. We haven't heard from his podcast in a little while. Actually, we'll be curious to hear him host the show. I feel like this is the moment where people want to hear his thoughts, and he's gone as cold on there. Anyway, Damon, I can't thank you enough, brother. It's always fun collaborating with you. You got to let me know when you go to Warriors games so we can go together for that.
Done.
I'd rather have a friend by my side when I go to those things. So yeah, let me know. Congrats, man, on everything. Thank you. Thank you to everyone. And we'll be back at this soon later. Bye-bye.